Welcome to Reddit After Hours. This is r/am I the butthole, where OP gets guilt tripped by her husband's family for not wanting to abide by their family tradition. Our first Reddit post comes from Happy Joy 11, titled, "Am I the butthole for not loving my sister's children the way she and her husband do?" Over the past 2 years, I, a 43-year-old female, have traveled to spend a week with my sister, who's 40, and her family. She and her husband have 3 young boys, a 3.5-year-old and a twin 2.5-year-olds. It's about a 6-hour flight to get there, so it's not a trip that I can make on a regular basis. When I visited last February, it was a great trip. A good mix of sister time, hanging out with the kids and her husband, a night out, a house party, just all around enjoyable. Her husband is great and is a stay-at-home dad. My sister works from home and is a successful businesswoman. I was genuinely excited to go visit again last month. Now, I'm not a kid person, and I really never have been. My partner and I intentionally are childless, and we love our quiet, low-key life. I'm good with kids, though. I'll play with them, and I'll play with their toys with them. I'll crawl around on the floor with them. I'm down to do whatever goofy things that they're into, but for only about 2 hours at a time. Then I have to tap out and go recharge. I'm also not great with the constant noise that kids make. I understand that that's just what they do, but I've got a really low threshold for it, especially when it's full-blown meltdowns. For the first 3 to 4 days I was at my sister's, the 3 kids were screaming and crying nearly every 25 minutes. So when the temper tantrum started, I'd go outside or just leave the room. At one point, the kids and husband are out of the house, and my sister took the opportunity to tell me how she's disappointed that I, quote, don't love the boys the way that she and her husband do. I said that I do love the boys, and I asked if there was something that I did or didn't do with the kids that upset her. She said no, that I was great with them, and I asked if she thought that I was paying enough attention to them. She said that I was, but brought up my low tolerance for the fits. I apologized and reminded her that I'm not really used to it and that it's kind of stressful, so I just removed myself from the situation. Now that has kind of devolved from there, but we recovered and the rest of the trip was fine. Am I the butthole for thinking that my sister's request is way off base? Like, I love my nephews, but I don't think anyone can love children in the way that their parents do. OP, I definitely don't think you're a butthole here. At the end of the day, they're not your kids. You clearly love them, you want the best for them, and you want to, play with them and hang out with them. But at the end of the day, you shouldn't be expected to love them more or the same as their parents. Their parents are supposed to be the ones that love them the most. And you also shouldn't be expected to take care of their tantrums when they're having a tantrum. Because again, they're not your kids. That's, the parents' job to try to figure those things out and navigate those things. So definitely not the butthole OP. You clearly love your nephews and want to play with them. And I think that's great, especially since you don't really like kids to begin with. Our next Reddit post comes from Immediate Phrase 999, titled, "Am I the butthole for agreeing with my daughter that it's weird that her friend's mom has access to their conversations?" My daughter is 14 years old and has a friend named Chloe. She and Chloe have been friends for a little over a year now. Chloe's mom, Gina, is someone who I would consider pretty strict. I was aware that she would check Chloe's phone, and I know a lot of parents do this, but I found out a few months ago through my daughter that she'd respond through Chloe's phone to Chloe's friends, including my daughter. It was never anything overkill, just Chloe can't talk right now. She's busy with homework, or whatever. I thought that this was kind of odd, but I didn't say anything to Gina about it because it's her life and it's her business. I got a call from Gina earlier this afternoon, and she was very pissed off and told me that my daughter was rude and that I needed to start monitoring what she says, etc. I asked her what exactly happened, and she said that my daughter gave her attitude via text. I was still very confused and asked why they were texting. Gina became exasperated and snapped and said, "Through Chloe's phone." I told her that I'd call her back and ask my daughter specifically what happened. My daughter willingly showed me her text. She had texted Chloe something. Gina had responded using Chloe's phone, saying Chloe was busy. My daughter replied asking when Chloe would be available to talk. Gina told her when she's ready, stop texting her. My daughter replied, "You don't have to be so rude." Gina said that she wasn't being rude, and my daughter said, yes, Gina was, and also called her a weirdo for using Chloe's phone. I told my daughter next time, just don't engage. I did also say that it wasn't kind to call someone a weirdo and not to do it again, but that I also understood her frustration. I didn't punish her. She seemed very receptive to the talk, and I just left it at that. I called Gina back and told her that I had spoken to my daughter and handled the problem. Gina started ranting that I need to monitor my daughter's phone, and have I seen some of the things that she talks about? She started on crushes, rants about teachers, saying that there were times that my daughter badmouthed me when frustrated. I said, that's all fine. I'd rather her have a safe space to vent with her friends because, after all, she's a teenager. Gina kept pressing on the issue and what would be done. I told her nothing. I spoke with my daughter and I handled it. Gina said, but she insulted an adult. And I told her that, again, I handled it. But my daughter also didn't say anything that wasn't true. Gina was, and still is, acting like a weirdo. Now, Gina is angry with me too. My daughter doesn't care and said that all of this is kind of funny. However, my husband thinks that I shouldn't have said it, as it really didn't solve anything, and Gina can parent how she wants. I never said or commented on Gina's parenting until she tried to undermine and insult mine. Am I the butthole for this? OP, definitely not a butthole for this. I think that you kind of handled this like a champ. Like, you had your daughter's back, you gave her a talk, she seemed receptive of it, and you kind of left it at that. And you could have gotten really upset and been like, oh, wow, she badmouths me to her friend. Oh, now I'm going to go talk to her about that. But, you understood. Teenagers are going to be teenagers, and it's good for her to have that safe space because, let's be real. We complain about our parents all the time to our friends, right? So it's unreasonable to think that our own kids aren't going to complain about us at some point, at some time with their friends, right? So letting her have that safe space and respecting that safe space and not trying to violate it, I think is great. And I agree. Gina's mom is kind of a weirdo. And I understand wanting to, know what's going on in your kids' lives to make sure they're okay. But I think she's going overboard with this. Our next Reddit post comes from After AD 3961, titled, Am I the butthole for not following my husband's family tradition? So for context, my husband comes from a very traditional family. While we disagree on his family on many things, it has never really been an issue until now. I'm currently 8 months pregnant, and my husband and I couldn't be happier, as we've been trying for a while. Since I first found out that I was pregnant, we've been discussing names for our child. In my husband's family, the tradition wants the child to be named after his grandfather. Basically, firstborn men in his family only have one of two names, James or Henry. My husband's grandfather was James, so his name is James too. My husband's father is called Henry, so our child should be called Henry too, and so forth. But my husband and I didn't really feel like calling our child Henry, and although it's a beautiful way to honor family members, we really wanted our child to have a name that would be personal, that would be truly his. So we chose another name and decided to wait until after the birth to reveal it to everyone. This week, my mother-in-law came to visit us and help us set up for the baby. She brought us some presents, and amongst those was a bunch of clothes on it which had embroidered the name Henry. I said that it was nice, and I thanked her for it, but told her that we wouldn't be naming our child Henry, as we had already told her in the past. She started insisting and saying that it was a tradition, so it had to be that way. I explained to her that we'd rather give our child a name that we chose and that Henry could be his middle name if she wanted. She immediately went to my husband and started saying things like, "You're not going to let her do that to our family," and making it very dramatic, saying that I was breaking the tradition that went back hundreds of years. Honestly, I'm not sure about that one. Not sure if that's true. My husband tried to explain that we both agreed on the name and all the reasons why we made that choice, but she just wouldn't listen. She suggested that we name him Henry on paper as his legal name and then call him something else. But I thought that that would be confusing for him and told her that he would not be named Henry and was going to be named what we chose. She kept begging my husband and saying that I was ruining the family tradition, and at one point I just lost it, which is partially to blame on my hormones, I think, and told her that it was our child, so we did what we wanted and we didn't have to follow any stupid tradition. She stormed out, and my husband has since received texts from his father and sister accusing me of making his mother feel really bad and some other stuff that I don't really remember. I get the importance of tradition, and it can be really beautiful at times, but also I feel like I shouldn't have to be obligated to do this and that it's okay to change things sometimes. We won't change our baby's name because we're really set on it at this point, but maybe we were wrong for not following the tradition. I'm not entirely sure now, and I'm just mentally exhausted by all of this drama. OP, for one, you already warned her from this post, like you said it earlier in the post. You already warned her that you weren't going to name your child Henry, so none of this should have come as a surprise to her. Also, how crazy of that is a thought? Like, just remove the family tradition context out of it, right? How crazy of a thought is it for most people to say that, hey, I'm going to let my family name my child and I'm just going to accept whatever name they throw at me and I'm not even going to consider any of my own names? Like, that would be a crazy thought for a lot of people, right? So definitely not the butthole OP. Honestly, I'm kind of proud of you for, giving your kid their own unique name so they don't, so they can feel like their own person, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with family tradition or naming your kid after somebody, but, kudos to you for making your own decision and standing on it. And kudos to your husband for actually supporting you in this. I read a lot of stories about very unsupportive husbands that just submit to anything that their family wants them to do and doesn't support their wives at all. So kudos to your husband, OP. You got a good one. Our next Reddit post comes from DASSKZ, titled, "Am I the butthole for publicly telling my ex-coworker that I don't like them?" So I ran into an ex-coworker, Sarah, at a bar while I was out with my friends celebrating my birthday. We worked together for about 2 years at a fast food restaurant. I left this job in January of 2025. She was a shift lead there, and I've honestly never really liked her. I didn't like her management style or her personality. She came up to me at the bar and we had a 10-ish minute conversation. I thought that it was cordial and polite. She was mostly asking me questions about my new job. She asked if I would recommend her for a job at my new company. I got a job at a call center and it's nothing glamorous. I told her that I wasn't comfortable with that. She brushed it off with a bad joke, and I entered the conversation and walked to the table where my friends were at, and Sarah actually followed me. I didn't notice, though, until I got to the table and she sat down next to me. My friends introduced themselves, and I, without thinking, said something along the lines of, "I don't like you. Can you leave, please?" Now, for context, I have autism, and I could tell that this was not the correct thing to say. Everyone seemed uncomfortable, and Sarah was visibly shocked and upset. My friends were shocked and confused. They assumed that Sarah was my friend or someone that I invited to the table. They had zero context of who Sarah was. Sarah made a scene and told me that I was rude, a grunt, and a bunch of other things. She said that I embarrassed her. She embarrassed herself by following me to my table uninvited, I thought. And yes, she knew that it was my birthday. Now, I do feel bad, and I know that I could have formulated a polite response, but she's a former coworker, and honestly, an unpleasant one. I have many stories about her, but the worst example is that she made jokes about my autism and deafness multiple times. She is fake nice, and her friendship style is bullying people, which has a really icky vibe. I don't know what Sarah wanted from me. I wasn't going to hang out with her, especially not on my birthday. So am I the butthole for telling her bluntly that I don't like her? And then we get an edit from OP. Edit. I forgot to mention how my friends reacted after Sarah left. They were really upset that she called me a grunt and collectively told her to leave. Sarah left quickly, and I told them who she was. They've heard stories about Sarah for years. None of my friends, though, thought that I was a butthole. All of them were comforting and validating me. We ended up leaving the bar within an hour because I was just overstimulated and felt so uncomfortable being at that bar now. We went back to my apartment and hung out there for a bit. The reason that I thought that I was a butthole, though, is because I've been trying to be better about social situations. My friends are used to how I communicate and are kind of biased sometimes. When I was reflecting on the situation, I was thinking of better ways to tell Sarah to leave without having resulted in a scene or being berated. Thank you everyone who took the time to read my post, and I can't possibly respond to every comment, but I have read them all. OP, you are 1,000,000% not the butthole here. I understand that you're trying to be better with social situations and you may think that you may have done something wrong here, but honestly, you wouldn't have been in the wrong if you just went off on her and started yelling at her about making fun of your autism and making fun of you being deaf, and then having the audacity to come hang out with you and ask you for a recommendation as if she wasn't terrible to you and, as if she didn't bully you the entire time you were at that job. Like, honestly, you handled this in a much more mild way than I think a lot of people would. So, definitely not the butthole OP. I think you did exactly what you should have done. And, hey, at least you got the point across to her that you don't like her. So, hopefully, she'll never try to engage with you again. That was Reddit After Hours, bringing you r/Am I the Butthole. Thank you all so much for listening. And if you like these videos, like and subscribe as we post a new Reddit video almost every single day.